Today, what we're going to be talking about, rumination, is something that affects probably every person on earth, because rumination in itself is a normal function of the brain. But for those of us who suffer from complex post-traumatic stress disorder or complex trauma, we're feeling overwhelmed by the sadness and the depression and the anxiety that comes from rumination, and the rumination that comes from the sadness and the depression and the anxiety. We find ourselves in these loops where we wish we had the ability to stop the overthinking, to stop the perseverating, but it just keeps repeating itself over and over. And we think, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get a handle on this? Is this ever going to go away? But the reality of rumination is that it's more normal than you really think. In fact, there's so many people who are suffering from rumination. For instance, there's one woman named Shannon. She was so embarrassed with the way her boyfriend dumped her. He did it over dinner with her whole family there, and just in spectacular fashion, he gets up, walks out of the house, only after calling her, a few names and saying that it was all her fault. And then he left and just went out of her life, and she felt just heartbroken. How could he just get up and leave her like that, and then to do it in front of the family? Her boyfriend never really talked to her about what he was going through or what it was he was feeling, and so she's really feeling embarrassed. She's really feeling. Sometimes she gets upset. Sometimes she gets depressed because she feels like it's her fault. She replays the relationship in her head, and she keeps going back to that moment where she just sat there and she froze. And she wonders, how can she stop obsessing about this and obsessing about her boyfriend? If you're just joining us, we're talking about rumination. How can I stop thinking about the same painful thing over and over again? And isn't it true that usually what we're ruminating about that we really want to stop is the painful thoughts, right? Nobody ever calls me and says, Roman, I've been thinking and thinking and thinking about some of the best thoughts, and it's just giving me all the best feelings. And I'm just thinking about all my best memories, and I'm just feeling so great. Can you stop this rumination? That doesn't happen, because it's the painful thoughts. It's the excruciating, repetitive punishment that's happening in our head. That's what we want to stop. So how do we do that? Well, let's talk a little bit about what rumination is and how our mind works. So then I can equip you with the tool. And I am going to give you a tool today that you can use that will work. It will work. I am going to tell you how to stop the painful perseverating and the rumination. You're going to learn that right here, right now. And what I did is I got rid of 5 steps, 3 steps, and broke it down to 1 step. The reason why we want it on 1 step is because I want you to be able to memorize the step. Because I know you guys are great with taking notes and journaling. That's fantastic. Please do that. But we need to have this step memorized, because the rumination hits us at all these random times. No matter where we are, we don't always have our notebook. So now you're going to be able to remember that 1 step that I'm supposed to do to stop the rumination and get in control. Because it is possible. You don't have to be a prisoner of the rumination. So what is rumination? Well, it's thinking about something over and over and over again, nonstop. And it's coming up at times we don't want it to be there. So typically we attribute rumination to something that's negative, or something that's making us feel negative. Now, that word rumination is also used for what cows do with the already digested food. They like upchuck it back into their mouth, and then they chew it again. And that is called rumination as well. So that gives us a nice little word picture for how we feel, because it's like these things are in the past a lot of times, but we're still thinking about it, and we're going over it over and over. We just wish it could stop. So scientifically, what's really happening in the brain, and why is this happening? Well, you've heard again and again, your mind is designed for survival. It's wired for survival, right? So that's true. When we talk about the brain, the animal brain, so to speak, it's working on things to help you to survive, to alert you to danger. But what happens with rumination is we don't understand why it's replaying this particular thing, because we feel like this isn't a survival based thing. I'm just thinking about that time that I was embarrassed, or that breakup or whatever. It's not helping me to survive. So what now? Well, where scientists hit a wall in their understanding is they're dealing only in the physical. But your mind cares not just for your physical well-being, but also for your metaphysical well-being. That is the inner self, the energy self. See, your thoughts and your emotions, they can't be seen by the human eye, but they exist, don't they? They are pure energy. Your thoughts and your emotions are pure energy. That is the metaphysical parts of the self. So what's happening in the energy realm of the self? That's the question to ask. Well, the mind is recognizing there's a threat to your energy self, your metaphysical self. Well, how is that? Well, energy threats are threats to who we are as a person, the inner version of ourselves, our soul, our identity, our ego, everything we hold ourselves as and what we hold dear in this world. When there's threats to those concepts, and concepts, those thoughts are all energy, just in our mind. But when there's threats perceived to these concepts, we ruminate over these things again and again because it's perceiving a threat. It's like there's something bad that's about to happen or that has happened, and we have to figure out how to overcome it. The mind is going on it again and again because it perceives it as important, detrimental. It was traumatic, or it vows to be traumatic. So it is a threat to the energy self in the metaphysical realm. Your subconscious mind is a computer system, right? Because you got two parts. If you're new to these talks, your conscious, that's you, the conscious mind, and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is a computer system. It's running things automatically. It's got all your systems going, right? So the subconscious mind is what detects threats and reacts to the threats. So when your subconscious mind detects a snake in the grass, it will in 1/12 of a second get your body pumped with the chemicals needed to run, or just start fighting, or start screaming, or something, right? That's the survival mindset. And that's what the subconscious mind does. It's great. It just works automatically. So understanding that the supercomputer is running your heart automatically, and it's running your digestive system automatically, and your circulatory system automatically, and your breathing automatically, then you shouldn't be surprised to know that it's also running thoughts automatically. You don't have to be bewildered by the fact that your thoughts run automatically. You don't have to say, I don't know what to do. My thoughts never stop. Well, yeah, if your thoughts stopped, then you would be dead. Even when we sleep, we call that an unconscious state because our consciousness doesn't seem to be totally online, but the subconscious keeps going. The subconscious never stops. That's why you're getting dreams. Subconscious is going with dreams. We're like, come on, let's go. The party's still going. Subconscious never stops. Only in death the subconscious stops, because it can't. If the subconscious stops, what's going to run your heart and your blood? What's going to run your immune system? Like, what's running all these systems in your body if the subconscious stops? It doesn't make sense. So the subconscious got to keep going. So when your thoughts keep going, don't get overwhelmed. Your thoughts always are going. You may not be always conscious of what your thoughts are. So you might say, no, sometimes I don't have any thoughts. That's ridiculous. You might not at that moment be conscious of your thoughts, but we all have thoughts, and the thoughts are always going. Now, what is the subconscious going to think about, since it has to think 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, since it has to always be thinking? What is it going to think about? What should it think about? Well, it's going to think about whatever it deemed as important or possibly a threat to the self. That's why you ruminate on all the negative things, because you've given emotional significance to those thoughts, to those situations, and it perceives it as a threat to the self. That is why you ruminate on those things. Once again, you gave it emotional significance. It was a breakup. You got fired from work. You lost all your money. You were taken advantage of. You were scammed. You were schemed against. You were plotted against. You were betrayed. It's something that affects you emotionally. And so you give it emotional significance by feeling sad or angry or embarrassed about it. And it's seen as a threat to the self because it violated your laws. It violated the laws of who you are, of what you deem to be important, of your values, of your very identity. So it sees it as a threat to your actual existence. That's why your mind's thinking about it again and again. It's the subconscious's job to keep on thinking. And so it's going to think about whatever it normally thinks about. You get a neural pathway created in the brain, and that's where all the energy tends to go and tends to flow. And once that pathway is worn down into the brain, your energy is going to keep going back there. And it's going to keep thinking about wherever the neural pathways are. If you play basketball a lot, you'll think about basketball a lot. If you watch your favorite show a lot, you'll think about your favorite show a lot. Wherever there's a neural pathway beat down, then all the energy is going to flow there. And neural pathways are just like a path in the grass, right? The more you walk it, the more worn down it is and the easier it is to walk that path. That's how neural pathways work in the brain. The good thing is you can create new neural pathways anytime. The good thing is those old neural pathways can close up at any time. You are not a prisoner to your existing neural pathways. You can learn. And now I'm going to give you the one step that you can use to stop rumination, and you can learn these steps, because whether you're 60, 70, 80, even 90, or whatever age you are, you can't tell me you cannot learn, because you can sit down and you watch the news. Even in old age, people watch the news, and what it is it's new information. They're able to learn it. Oh, there's a flood and such, there's a hurricane somewhere. You're still able to learn. You're always able to learn new things. So you can always create new neural pathways. When you don't use old neural pathways, they close up. So the tools that I'm going to give you will help you in two ways. They're going to help you to stop rumination in the moment, and they'll help you to stop rumination on a permanent basis. So here's the one step. Whenever you're ruminating, be the leader. That's step number 1 of 1. Be the leader. Do you know what that means? I'll take a moment to explain it. But for some of you who've already been paying attention to these talks, you might already have an idea of what I mean by being the leader, right? Because you, as the conscious self, run by the conscious mind, you're logical, you're thoughtful, you're moral, you're powerful, you're compassionate. You are the ideal leader. We mistakenly think that our subconscious brain is us. It's not the same thing. That's like saying my hand is me. My hand is not me. It's a part of me. It's something I have, maybe at best, but it is not me. Your subconscious mind, your brain is not you. The subconscious mind is just something you have. It's a part of you, maybe, but it is not you. You are a conscious energy being. That's the best we can explain it. It's obvious you're animate. You have the ability to look around, to think, to observe, but also to observe your own thoughts. You can judge, or you can choose not to judge. That ability to think, to judge, to have free will and free choice, this is unique to the conscious self. So you, as the conscious being, are actually designed to be the leader of the self. What happens is, because the emotions and the trauma that we've experienced in our life is so overwhelming to us, and having parents that didn't validate us and didn't make us feel powerful and didn't help us to recognize the powerful gifts that we have, that we were born with. We don't think in terms of our personal power, so we don't think to be the leader of the self. So when we get the subconscious ruminations, we think, this is me, my brain is going, I don't know how to stop it, oh no. And then the flood of emotions comes and we think, oh, these emotions are so crushing, I don't know what to do, because these emotions are just too much to handle. Because the emotions are so strong, we think that the emotions are the boss. Because we grew up in a house where whoever talked the loudest was the boss. And so our mom or our dad or brother or sister, they would come in, they would take the space, and they would be the boss, and they would be demanding. And they would expect you to fall in line. You had to submit, right? And that was the only way you could survive, is just to submit. So you just learned, oh my God, I got to submit. And they would be punishing, especially if they were emotionally punishing. You were trained to know that emotions are used to punish you. So when you would get a punishing emotion, they would actually utilize your emotional system against you. So they'll say things to hurt you, to make you feel bad, to make you feel less than, to make you feel embarrassed, to make you feel fear. My mother used to say, I'm going to beat you until I'm tired. Right? The idea of that is a psychological warfare. Like, I'm going to frighten you before I beat, not just like there's a beating. No, I want you to be frightened, you 6-7-year-old boy. I want you to be actually in terror. If you grew up with parents that put you in this type of terror, you may have learned that these emotions, they're so overwhelming, but they are the boss of you, because your parents weaponize your emotions against you. But you are not a slave. There is no human that's actually the boss of you. You're the boss. If you look at yourself, you'll realize there are no strings attached. There are no wires. There are no cords. So you were actually created to be an independent, autonomous being, intelligent and capable of moving forward in life, of running yourself. You were created to be an autonomous being. You're not created to be a slave. You're the boss. Who's the boss? It's you, the conscious self. So here's the point. By being the leader of the self, the subconscious perseverations no longer have their power over you. Here's the conscious mind, here's you, and here's the subconscious perseverations. When you stand up as a leader of the self, the subconscious perseverations are no longer dominating you, you dominate them. So you approach it from the standpoint of a leader, everything changes. Here's an illustration to help you start to understand what I mean by be the leader and how you can do this. Think of yourself in a leadership position at work. So let's pretend you're the boss at work. You got a group of people that work under you, and you go into the meetings, and at times, the people in the meetings tend to perseverate as a group, and group perseveration is something that actually exists, right? So group rumination, they're all talking about these things, these issues that come up, right? That they're upset about. So let's say they're talking about somebody who got fired from the job. And they all like this person, they relied on this person. So they're going, oh man, I can't believe this person got fired. I can't believe this happened to this person. How might you show up as the leader? What might you say to your group, to your team, who keeps going on and on again about that person who got fired off the job, or that person who quit? What might you say? Think about it for a moment. Well, how would you instruct your team? Would you go in there and commiserate with them? Be like, yeah, I really miss Darren. He was so great. Oh, it's too bad. No, what would you say as leader of the team? People aren't focusing on their work because they're focusing on how Darren no longer works here. What would you say? You might come in and say something like, hey guys, I understand, I miss Darren too, but we have what we need here. The members of this team have the ability to step up and to do what needs to be done. So let's do that. Let's focus on who we have here, guys. We have a job to do. So let's step up, let's work together, let's harmonize, and let's do what we need to do. Might you say something like that? Does that sound about right? Is that kind of what you had in mind? Good. That's how you show up for yourself when someone got fired or quit from your life. Because your subconscious mind is your team. They work for you. You don't work for them. They work for you. So they're saying, oh man, your subconscious mind go, oh man, we lost our girlfriend or we lost our boyfriend. Oh my God, my boyfriend, he left, or my husband, he just ran out and he's just cheated on me. And I can't believe he's gone. And all that, and you're going over and over and over and over again in your head. Be the leader. All you have to do to stop the rumination is when you realize you're doing it, step into the room as the conscious self and be like, okay, hey, listen, self, I know we really valued that person and we would have done anything for them and it was great to have them, but right now we have all we need right here in us and we'll be okay. So let's step up to the plate because we have work to do. Let's focus on our purpose. Let's focus on the things that we want to do, because there's some bright sides to this too, which is now we don't have to try to take care of another person. We can actually start learning to take care of ourselves. And we can become 1 year from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, the best version of ourselves. Show up as the leader of yourself. And when you respond to the subconscious mind, you know what the subconscious mind says? Okay. Because it's designed to be your follower. That's how your subconscious will respond to you. It says, all right, it responds just like people who work for you. It might say, well, what about this? It might give you another question. Answer the question like you would if you were a leader. If you're a leader of a group that asks questions, you might say, hey, look, I can't deal with that right now, but bring that up later. Or you might say, okay, now that you asked the question, here it is. Here's the answer. Bam. That's how you stop the rumination. By the way, this also works as being a leader at work or in your family, because it's all about leadership. You're designed to be the leader of yourself. Let's take another example. You walk in the meeting room, everyone's there, they're ruminating on who's to blame for the problem. Oh man, this is because of corporate did this to us, man. They took away the such and such, and they're doing all that. How are you going to show up as the leader? You're going to go in there and be like, oh guys, what are you talking about? Oh, corporate. Ooh. You're not going to do that. Not if you're the leader, not if you're the boss. You're going to walk in and be like, all right, guys, hey, I hear what you're saying about corporate. They really did stiff us this time, but look, we got a job to do, and we have everything we need right here. And I believe in you guys. So let's do the best with what we have, rather than focusing on what we don't have. Right? You might say something like that, wouldn't you? When you think about how you would show up as a leader, suddenly you start knowing how to show up for yourself, because it's going to be the same thing when you're perseverating over blame and you're saying, man, this is my parents' fault. It's my mom's fault. She didn't sign the slip for me to go to college, and now my life is ruined. And you're perseverating, playing it again. Who's to blame? Who's to blame? Or I blame myself. It's my fault. None of that's healthy or necessary. So you got to show up as the leader of yourself. Be the leader. Right in that moment, respond to yourself. You can take a pen and paper. You can say it out loud. You can type it on a computer. It doesn't matter how you talk, but you got to talk back to yourself. The subconscious can perceive through the eyes, through the ears, through the brain. It can perceive many ways, but you got to speak back to yourself, and you got to say what you would say to your team. Hey, look, understand, our mom really did stiff us. Our dad really wasn't there for us, but rather than casting the blame on anyone else, let's recognize that we are responsible now and we have everything we need. I am everything I need in order to go forward. I need nothing else. It's too bad I didn't get what I needed back then, but I have what I need now. Show up as the leader of the self. And your subconscious mind will say, all right, thanks. Right? Let's say the subconscious mind is going on about something that wasn't fair. Oh man, this wasn't fair. It's not fair that because I'm black, or because I'm a woman, or because I'm Hispanic, this happened to me, or that happened to me. It's just not fair that this person took this thing, or my job went, then the boss didn't. And there's something that's not fair, right? So your mind perseverates about it. But if you walked into the meeting room and your team's waiting for you, but they're going on about something that's not fair, how are you going to show up as the leader? What might you say? Or if they ask you, hey, do you feel like this is fair? And what might you say? Talk back to your team. Your subconscious mind works for you. You're going to show up and say, hey, guys, this isn't fair. And that's true. But life's not fair sometimes. And what makes a winner is not that they had a fair shake. What makes a winner is that no matter what the shake was, however the dice fell, they made the best out of it. They won despite those circumstances. So this is an opportunity for us to show that there is nothing that can stop us. That's how you show up for your team, show up for yourself the same way. This is an opportunity for me to show that there is nothing that stops me. And yeah, it's not fair. But sitting around and crying about how it's not fair is not going to help me. In that moment, when you show up for yourself as a leader, your subconscious mind goes, all right. That was all we wanted to know. That's why we kept bringing this up. We just wanted to know, boss. We wanted to know what it was you wanted to do. So when you show up strong like that, hey, look, I hear you, but we got to do what we got to do. Subconscious mind says, all right. So what are the usual things that we tend to perseverate about? For some, it's like I named, things you're blaming someone else for, something you feel is not fair that happened, a past breakup or a relationship. It can be an event, something you found to be humiliating, embarrassing, something that happened in the past. You didn't like the way you handled it, or you didn't like the way someone else handled it. So you keep replaying it again and again. But whatever it is that you're perseverating about, whatever it is that you keep ruminating on, show up for yourself with step 1 of 1. Be the leader. Respond to the questions. A lot of times it's because there's questions that need to be answered, or there's advice that needs to be dispensed. Here's some good leadership type questions you can ask yourself if you're taking notes. Ask yourself, hey, does this really matter? In the big scheme of things, does this really matter? That can help you start thinking more like a leader. Or ask yourself, what is the subconscious benefit of replaying this? Because your subconscious, it has a reason a lot of times why it keeps replaying it. And sometimes it believes that by replaying this, it's going to protect the self in some way, right? It's wired for survival. So it says, oh, you know what? I've got you. I'm going to help you. And so it figures I'm going to protect you by replaying this situation over and over again. So ask yourself, what is the subconscious benefit? Write it down. Oh, it's because it's trying to protect me from this ever happening again, or it's frightened, or it doesn't know what to do next time, and then show up as the leader. Ask yourself, is there a lesson that can be learned from this? Because it's really the only thing the past is good for at this point. It's just facts and data back there. So just get the lesson you need from the past and never think about it again. The past has no value outside of the lessons you can extract from it. So you can go and ask yourself the question, what can I control? Because if you're thinking about things, you might be going on and on thinking about what you cannot control. So ask yourself the question, okay, of this situation, what is actually under my control? What can I control? And then focus on what you can control, what you actually control in that situation. Ask yourself this. Here's a good one. Is this an impossible question? Sometimes we ask ourselves questions that are impossible, and that's why we get caught in a loop. That's why it's ruminating. For instance, what was he thinking when he said blah, 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 blah? That's an impossible question. You have set yourself up for failure because you don't know what someone else was thinking. Or will he ever come back to me? Will I ever be happy again? Sometimes you're setting yourself up with questions that are impossible to answer. So instead of asking yourself, what was someone thinking, or trying to predict the future, rephrase the question. So ask yourself, is this an impossible question that I'm asking myself? And then find a way to change that question. So instead of, will he come back? Okay, what's a proper question? Because that's what I would say if I were leading my team at work and someone asked me an impossible question. I would say, there's no way I can answer that question. How would you rephrase that to something I can answer? So for instance, if you say, will he ever come back? That's impossible. So you change it to, am I getting my life together so that I'm showing up as the best version of myself? You're going to change the question from something impossible to something that you can actually answer. So now I've taken it off of him and his thoughts and put it onto my actions, because I can answer questions about my actions. Am I doing all I can? That's a good question to ask. And that will get you out of that loop because you're asking an impossible question. So you just have to say that to yourself. I'm sorry, hon, but that question you're asking, it is absolutely impossible to answer. Another good question you can ask yourself is, how can I change my perspective to see the good that comes out of this? So yeah, we have that really bad habit of looking at the situation as purely negative. So when you ask yourself, well, how can I change my perspective on the situation? So someone stole your man and you say, oh my gosh, this is terrible that someone stole my man away from me. And you're looking at all the bad. Why did this happen to me? Why did they do this? So can I change my perspective on this? Yeah. I'm glad that I'm no longer with a man that someone can just take. I'm glad I now know what this person's true nature is. Right? There's always that positive side of the situation that we can look to, or that more helpful side of the situation that we can look at instead of focusing on the unhelpful part of the situation. Right? And that's virtually anything. Right? Your house burns down and it's like, oh no, I lost my house. This is terrible. How can I change my perspective? What's a more helpful way I can look at this situation? I'm so happy I survived. I'm so happy none of my loved ones were hurt. I'm gonna have to start over with material possessions, but it's like now I can live my dream of being a minimalist because I literally have nothing left. Ha ha ha. Yes, make jokes, laugh. Absolutely. So definitely ask yourself how you can change your perspective. And that gives you an answer for all the ruminating that's happening. It gives you an answer to the questions that are in the mind. Here's my favorite technique. What advice would I give my son or daughter in this situation? It's one of the best ways to activate the leadership part of the mind, show up as the higher self, is to go into your parental mindset. We have it naturally, so don't worry. You don't need to actually be a parent. We all have this naturally. But without fail, when we ask ourselves, how would I respond if my son or my daughter, fictional, came up to me and asked me the same question? What would I say to them? And you will find the advice that comes out is wise beyond what you knew you were capable of. And finally, and this is a great showstopper for anxious thinking and rumination, you can shut it down with this one question right here. And the question is, what should I be obsessing over instead? I recognize that my subconscious mind will always be going, always be working, because it's a supercomputer, it's a gift. But what should I have this thing obsessing over? Don't be thrown off by the fact that your subconscious mind is obsessive. It's cool. It's actually cool. An obsessive subconscious mind is actually a gift. It's designed to kind of work on problems and pick them apart. It's doing a Rubik's Cube while you're moving on with your life. You don't want to always have to be handling everything. The subconscious mind is working for you. So, so instead of looking at it as being a purely negative thing that you're obsessive, change it and ask yourself, okay, I appreciate your thinking about my boyfriend or my ex-girlfriend, but what should I be obsessing about right now? What do I want to be obsessing about? And then you can start thinking about healthy desires. What do I want to have? What do I want to achieve? Who do I want to be? And when you get into that space, then you can start obsessing about your goals. This is being powerful. This is showing up for yourself and being the leader. This is putting your subconscious mind to work instead of allowing it to work you over. When you ask yourself that show-stopping question, okay, what should I be obsessing about? The rumination goes, ah! Wait, what are we doing? And it's like, oh, we should be obsessing about how we're going to turn our business into a $20,000 a month company. It's like, okay, wow, all right. And it starts working over here on this. It's going to start out slow, but it'll gain momentum. It'll get faster. It'll get better. And you will eventually start accomplishing your dreams, which means that you're living the life of your dreams. You're happier. You have more joy, more connection, more peace. So please utilize these tools, utilize this one step, and become the leader of the self.